Good evening. Good evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so being the first class today, after the introduction section, we'll take up basic fundamental principles of immigration law, and we'll be taking up basic concepts and the nature, scope, meaning of why immigration law is important. So let's begin. As yesterday we discussed, as I told y'all, immigration law for in today's generation, in today's date, it's more important because there are people from India who are going abroad for their future studies or for their future work or to settle there for their immigrant purposes or non-immigrant purposes. But when they go there, there are a lot of challenges that they face, maybe with the documentation or with the rejections or refusals, or maybe they do not have proper cover letters, or they do not have someone to guide them.
சமாதானம் கூப்பிடுறான். சமாதானம் கூப்பிடுறான்.
Advocate, yeah, thank you. Okay. And it is important these days because there are a lot of people from abroad coming to India to start their own business, or people from India going abroad to start their employment, to start their own businesses, to have an independent practice, and so on and so forth. Also, there are people whose family is settled abroad, but they are left behind here. So, to help them, to give them a way to help them know how to move about in this situation, we have come up with this course. We have come up with this crash course of immigration law. And there are also, and nothing is easy, there's a lot of challenges everywhere in every field. Similarly, we have challenges here as well. So to understand the complex situations, how to come about in that, to understand what security compliance to follow, and what rules and regulations to keep in mind, we'll be going with all those things as well with this in this course. So first, let's understand what outbound and inbound immigration is. So, outbound is when you are leaving your home country and going to settle abroad. Suppose I am going from India to USA, so that will be considered as an outbound immigration. Whereas if somebody from USA is coming to India to settle or to study, that will be considered as an inbound immigration. This was also discussed yesterday in yesterday's class. Also, if Yon would be aware that recently there are changes, and it is said that passport is no longer a citizenship document. So we will also know what why exactly was this told, and if that is not considered as a citizenship document, so do we actually need a document, or do we have a document that is considered as a citizenship document? So we'll be going with that as well. And yeah, okay. So outbound and inbound is what we'll be taking. In inbound, we'll be taking business visas. We'll be learning about employment visas. We'll be learning about tourist visas, X1 visa, OCI. This all will become covered under inbound immigration. Outbound, we'll be taking US immigration law, how to fill out the forms and everything. That's what I told yesterday. The five core pillars of migration. First and very important is employment based, because these days there's a lot of employment opportunities generated. Also, Germany and Germany and other few countries are giving a lot of opportunities for Indians who have extraordinary skills in certain who possess an extraordinary skills and a certain background and everything. So there's a lot of employment opportunities generated. But even if you possess even if you possess certain skills, but you do not know how to take that skill, how to use that skill, and you do not know how to use that skill and you apply for a visa to a country which allows you, which is asking you to come there. So it is of no use until you do not know the procedure. So I'll be sharing few of those employment news also, maybe if that's beneficial for us, I mean beneficial for the ones who have joined here. Then the next core pillar is family based. It is because there is a lot of there are a lot of people who have been separated since quite a long time. Recently, also, I'm working on a case whose entire family is in the USA, and he's been struggling for almost 2 decades to go to USA. But his application, his letters are being rejected every other time. Every other time when he applies, he's been rejected for maybe incomplete documentation, or maybe there are signatures missing on the form that he was submitting and everything. So there's a lot there are many cases like that, who have been separated, who parents have been separated, children are not able to go there, or maybe the children are in the USA and the parents are left behind here. So we'll be understanding that how and what can be done in those cases. So obviously the family based thing, the sponsorship will come under immigrant USA immigrant side, and skilled workers employment student visas will come under the non-immigrant side. That is what we had discussed yesterday as well. Student migration to who go for their undergraduates or postgraduates or for the doctorate degrees and everything. So we'll be covering um, we'll be taking up how to prepare for interviews, and what to keep ready as documents for your interview, during your interview, and also post interview. It's not just that it's not just that until you give your interview, after you give your interview everything is sorted. It's not like that. Let me be clear. Once you give your interview also, there might be scrutiny in your cases, because many a times it has happened that once, even if you have been granted your visa, there have been scrutinies, there have been strict checking, because if there are certain if they find out that there is certain things that you couldn't communicate to the officer maybe, so then they come up with strict scrutiny with your applications. And how this is done, I will tell you all that as well. It's not just that they check your applications, it's not just that they check your social media accounts. If in case the officer feels that this application seems maybe we have granted visa to this person, but we feel that no, something was lacking, or there are chances that this person is hiding some facts from us, or maybe is not showing us why truly he wants to shift there. So, in those cases, these officers will come up with scrutiny of your applications, but they will never come to your place to ask or to reconfirm or to recheck that application. This checking will be done either from your neighbor. They might go to your neighbor's place, and then they can ask whether this person stays here, or whether there's been any criminal records, or was this person ever involved in any criminal activities. First thing, they can ask their neighbor. Second thing, if they do not want to ask their neighbor to know the facts, to know your exact case, they can ask somebody who stays around in your vicinity. They can, who they might feel, who they feel might know you. So, someone in your vicinity, they can go and ask those persons, if not neighbors. If not them, the officer can also go and ask to some shopkeeper, to some shop that's very close to your house. Maybe it can be any general store or anything. And it's very obvious that the general store person might not know everyone personally, but they can go and ask that person to have a watch on you, or to keep a watch on you, or maybe they can tell that person that you might ask somebody who might know them. So through and through they can come up with the scrutinies and everything. And once they get all the facts which you must have not cleared it to them during your interview, they can call you back again for an interview. And during that time they can again take up your scrutiny, they can again take up your interview. And if they feel that the visa that was granted to you should not be granted, so that can also get cancelled. So so we will I will guide you all with that as well, that whatever facts, even if you have a criminal record, do not hide it. This is what I told yesterday also, this is what I'm saying again today, and I'll be repeating this thing every other session, because people do this. It's a very common thing that I have come across till now in my practice, in these many years of my practice. So this is a very important thing. Even if you have any records, anything, just be confident enough during your interview and do not hide any facts. So many students do that. Many employers who are going there on an H1 visa, who are going there for work, they do that. So we'll be taking up that as well, that why, how to handle such situations, and why is it necessary to handle such situations. Then we have business and investment visas. Um, that's what it is, like a work visa only basically. And for entrepreneurs who want to start their, who have their business here, well established business in India, but they want to go to some other country to we'll consider USA only. They want to go to USA and start a new branch over there. So how to, which visa category will apply to them, and how to do that, what documentations you require. Because when you go for a, if you have a well established business here in India and you want to start a new branch in USA, so the visa category that applies there is the L visa. People people take that, it is a misconception for most of the people. They feel that if they want to go there and start a business, they can go for a B1, B2 only, which is a tourism and business visa, no doubt. But that business covers business meetings, and not that you can start your own independent business branch over there. So we'll be understanding that. So it's a very core pillar to of this immigration course. And then humanitarian, there are refugee cases, there are asylum cases, there are asylees who come to us. So we'll be understanding that as well, what to do under such situations when you have got a refugee case or an asylum case. The next is the hierarchy of knowing your legal status. Again, this, there's a lot of misconception that if suppose there's a client who comes to us, and then the client has got his visa, maybe a tourist visa, and then he plans his entire trip and everything. He is in the USA, considering USA, okay, he's in the USA. Once he lands there, he feels, okay, once I'm here in USA means I'm the citizen of this country because I've been granted a visa. But people don't understand that there's a huge difference between getting a visa, getting a residency permit, and then becoming a nationality, and then you get the citizenship. So we have to go step by step. It's nowhere that once you have been granted a visa, okay, you get a visa under certain, there are certain countries where you get golden visas or something that allow you a longer stay. That's a different case. But when you have got a tourist visa or a student visa or a work visa, you cannot stay for a longer time in these visas. So this, in this thing also, I had a client who got his tourist visa, but it's back then around 19 I think 1980s or something. I don't remember exactly the year, but he was granted a tourist visa at that time. And that too with a lucky draw thing. The lucky draw system used to go on at that time. So he got a tourist business visa. That's a B1, B2 USA visa from his company. He landed there in USA. He visited few places as a tourist, And then suddenly he decided that because he has a B1, B2 visa, he can stay there. He can stay there, he can work there, he can start his business there. Was his misconception. He did not start his own business, but he started working there. And he stayed there for almost like 6 years. And then 6 years later, he came back to India because of some family situation here back in India. Then again from India, he went to USA on the same visa. But at that time, the immigration system was not so strict. It was not, people did not used to take up so much scrutinies. Once you get your visa, so it was like, okay, fine, let that person go, let that person stay. Until and unless there's some inquiry, people didn't used to go and check if somebody is overstaying or somebody is misusing. So he did not take that much into consideration. He was just of the opinion that because he has a visa, he can stay there and work there. Then 6 years later, when he came back here in India, he stayed here in India only for 2 months something, and then he returned back again. He was again working there, and so on so forth. He started earning, and then later again, I think his father expired something, so he had to come back to India again. Then he decided that he did not want to go again. Till now, he did not face any problems. He did not face any consequences, nothing, no inquiries, nothing. But now in 2026, because his entire family is settled in USA, he's the only brother among four of them who is left back here in India. So he decided that because my entire family is there in USA, the family had filed an immigrant petition for him. This petition was also filed 10 years back, but as I told you, family sponsor petitions, and immigrant petition side takes years to get current. Once it is filed, it's not that the day it is filed, just the next day or in the next 10 to 15 days it becomes current and then you get your visa. It's not like that. There's a long waiting period. This period was not much before, but now comparatively, because of the geopolitical situations and the war situation that is going on, the wait periods is also getting longer every day. So the petition that was filed for him, his sister had filed for all the four brothers. The three brothers could go to USA. He was the only one left whose petition got current now. Then he got an interview date. He completed his medical appointments. If you all do not know, let me tell you all. If you want to go to any country where you want to settle there, if you're going on an immigrant purpose and not on a non-immigrant basis, you need to get your medical test done as well for USA, Australia, Canada, anywhere. If you're going as a resident, or if you're going for a citizenship, if you're going for PRs, or if you're going for green cards, you need to get certain medical tests done, and then those records and then those reports are recorded and everything. So he got all his medical and everything done. Then when he appeared for the interview, the officer at that time asked him that, did you violate any USA laws earlier? And he didn't knew this thing that staying there on a B1, B2 visa is a violation of law. So the person answered it as no. He was again asked the same question, but because he was unaware that this is violation of law, he kept saying it as no. Maybe if he would have told that as yes, and he would have apologized for it, so the officer would have considered, and he would have given him the visa to his family. But he kept saying it as no, even after 2 to 3 to 4 times the same question was repeated. Then the officer, he kept saying it as no, no, no. Later, when the interview came to an end, the officer told him the officer asked him all of these questions, that you got a B1, B2, a tourist visa in back long back in 90s. He agreed to that thing. Then the officer asked him, did you come back within 90 days of your trip? He told that he did not come back, and Then the officer told him that because you did not come back that time and you stayed there, you worked there, you started earning there, that is considered as the violation of US immigration law. And because you have violated that law, we cannot grant you an immigrant visa now. And cases like this comes up, and then because people, this is known as misrepresentation of facts. He did misrepresentation of facts, and then he got a ban for 10 years. Now because he is banned for 10 years, if waiver is given in his case, he can file for waiver, and then he can take this case and he can proceed with this case again and appear for an interview again. And once he appears for interview again, he'll have to accept all what he did. He'll have to apologize for the mistake, and then he'll be granted a visa. But that's not. But that also he'll have to say whatever truth and whatever mistake he did. If he'll get a ban for 10 years, and if there's no waiver in his case, then he'll have to wait for 10 years. He cannot do anything in such cases. So that is what I've been always saying. Whatever the truth is, know what you have done and tell the truth. Do not hide it. So my main intention, my main aim was to narrate this entire practical client scenario to you all, was because people still in these days consider a visa as you consider visa as your long-term visas, or consider that once a visa is given, it is a green card to us, or it is a proof of citizenship for us, and we can stay there for as long as we want. So we'll be knowing that also, under which visa category you can stay for how long. And the main focus will keep on USA, because I have seen many cases where people are going from India to US and from US to India. Then after the visa comes the residency permit. That's the permanent residencies, PRs, and the green cards. So that in certain cases, once you get a residence PR, you'll get a temporary time frame that you can stay for this many period, and then you can get this converted to your citizenship card. Or you have to stay for these many years, and then you need to return back. So that is also not a nationality. And then we'll know after visa, after residency comes the nationality. And then we'll come up to citizenship, that when do you become a citizen of a particular country. You even after you get a green card, doesn't mean that a green card for USA, once you get a green card for USA, doesn't mean that within 6 months or a year you become the citizen of US. You need to complete certain years over there, and then you can apply for citizenship. Sorry, what's the question? Okay, I think somebody wants this in Hindi. Uh, I don't know. I'm not sure if ये हिंदी में हो सकता है या नहीं, because I'm the mode of this course is English. Anyways, if there is any question, you can put in the chat box. Yeah, certain things I can give explanation in Hindi, but majorly it will be in English. Or maybe, yeah, okay, fine. Mm, okay, yeah, great. Okay, so now we know we have, I think it's very much clear till now what immigrant visas are and what non-immigrant visas are. So if you all can see the screen, the primary purpose, duration, departure, ultimate path, everything is being classified as a table format, which I just told you. So immigrant visas let you live permanently in the destination country. But let me tell you all one more thing. If you have been granted a green card, So that means you can stay in US also, you can stay in India also. But if you have been granted a green card and you have intentions of becoming a citizen of that particular country, or you want to continue using your green card, you want to be a green card holder, so you need to stay almost for 6 months in USA on the US soil. It doesn't mean that you have been granted a green card. So once you get your green card from USA, you can come back to India and continue all your activities here in India. And then once in a while, you go to USA for 10-15 days and then again come back to India. If you do that, your green card will get lapsed. There will be inquiries for you. You'll be called up again for your for you'll be called up again at the consulate for question answers, for the for inquiries and everything, for the scrutinies. And then also at the port of entry, the officer might flag you that you need to stay for almost 6 months on the US soil if you want to continue, if you want your green card to not get lapsed. So there are people who have been doing this mistake also, considering that once they get their green card, they can they can just stay for a few days in USA, or for a few months. Few months means you need to complete 6 months. If you have stayed in USA for 6 months, you can come to India for some time, or you can go anywhere. But staying in USA on the US soil for 6 months at least after getting your green card is a must. That also doesn't mean that if you have been granted a green card in the month of July, you stay till December in USA, then you come to India and then you are staying in India only. So that will also not be considered. If you do that, it will again put you in trouble. And then if you plan to become the citizen of that country, the procedure and then everything will take a longer time. Everything will keep on delaying, and the 6 months period will keep starting again. The officer might flag you once at the port of entry, officer might flag you twice at the port of entry. But if this thing keeps on happening every other time, then they might cancel your green card, and you will have to maybe start the process again. And then starting the process, as I told you, all takes almost around 8 to 10 years. So we'll clear out those things also, certain facts and certain FAQs that people come up to us always asking the number of period, the number of days, duration, and the length of stay, what all things you need to maintain once you've got your green card. In sorry in non-immigrant visas, is also, you need to keep it, certain things that you need to keep in mind is, once if you have got your again here, once you get your tourist visa, so the procedure starts like, you need to keep your documents ready, you need to plan your trip well, to which places you'll be visiting once you land in USA, you need to keep every all of those things ready. And then when you apply for a US visa, for a tourist visa, you need to fill out DS-160 form. That's the basic and the most important form. You cannot proceed further without filling out that form. And whatever you fill, you do not have to carry that form during your interview. No forms have to be submitted at that time. But when you fill out that form, once you submit it, the officer gets all your details, whatever you have filled in that form. And that's the most important, and that's the only form you need to fill when you're applying for your tourist visa. So whatever you fill in that form has to be very up to date, has to be very has to be on point. You do not need to skip any, you should not skip any parts from it. So that's the main important form to be filled out. And then you need to submit the form. Once the form is submitted online on the portal, you do not need to submit it offline. Once that DS-160 form is submitted online on the portal, the next step that you have to follow is, you need to take an appointment. And I'm working because I'm working for US laws, I'm working for US immigration. I had almost 50 clients who did not get their appointments in these last 3 months. Why? Because of the political situations, the war situation that was going on. the wait periods for non-immigrant visas has also been extended for 1 year, which was not the case earlier. Before, we used to get it within 15 days once we have paid the US visa fees, or within a month, max to max within 2 months, we used to get it once the visa fees was paid. But now, because the situation has become so worst that from last 3 months we couldn't secure any appointment dates for interview. It all the dates which we could secure, the earliest date that we could secure was for January, February, and March 2027. So after filling out the DS-160 form, you have to take your appointment, you have to book your appointment, and then once you appear for your interview, and you consider you have been granted your visa, but doesn't mean you will get visa for 10 years. You will get a visa stamp on your passport for 10 years, but doesn't mean that once you go to USA you can stay there for 6 months on a tourist visa. You cannot do that. If I am granted a US visa for 10 years, I cannot consider that okay, I've been granted this visa. That means once I go to USA, I can stay there for as long as I want, for 6 months, for 1 year, or for 6 years. No, you cannot do that. Even though your visa is valid for 10 years, when you will land when you land at the port of entry, at that time again there will be question answers. The officer might ask you that what's the reason for your trip, what's the reason you have come to USA, and then you need to answer them again, and you need to show them your intent that I'm here as a tourist, I want to visit your country, and I'll be visiting these places. Then they'll ask you, for how many days do you want to be here? So you cannot tell them that I want to be here for a year, or for 6 months, or for 3 months. The minimum that you can say, or the maximum you can say, is 3 weeks to 6 weeks. I plan my trip here. Then they'll give you a letter, or they'll give you a paper that will, in that letter it will be mentioned that you are allowed to be on the US soil for only 3 weeks, or maximum for 1 month. And if you cross that time frame, then again that will put you in trouble. So it's not that once you have been granted your visa, or once your visa is stamped on your passport, even if it's for 10 years or for 5 years, basically generally you get it for 10 years. But please don't consider that 10 years you can, once that 10 years visa is granted, you can stay there for how long, as long as you want. It's not like that. It's always that whatever period of time is granted, is given on that letter, you need to return back in that time frame again to your home country. So if you violate that, the next time when you go, you can face consequences. And because of all this, we have come up with this course to help people understand what exactly and when exactly what to do and how to do. Then duration and departure is just what I told you all. Then the ultimate path of immigrant visa is that it gives you all green card opportunity, and then that can slowly get converted to a full citizenship. But in non-immigrant visas, tourist work visas, or student visas, you need to leave the country as and when it is mentioned over there. Then qualification pathways for PR, that's the green card. So you cannot qualify for green card under F visa categories, that's the student visa categories. B1, B2 visa categories, those are the tourism and business visa categories. And you do not qualify for PR if you are going on J visas. And if you cannot qualify for PR if you are there on an O visa or an R visa. So USA basically has a list of alphabets, and then every alphabet represents a visa. Just like how B is for business and tourist, F is for student, J is when you have completed your degrees and you're going there to exchange your knowledge. Also, we have R visa, that's the religious visa that allows, in case if you have some religious activity, if you have some religious program in the USA, and maybe you are a priest over here, so at times people consider that if they just apply for a B1, B2 visa and then go there to attend that religious function, it will suffice them. That B1, B2 is okay for them. It might be okay. You will be granted a visa if you do not tell them that you're going there for a religious function. You just tell them that yeah, you're going for a tourist purpose, and that's the reason you are applying for a B1, B2. But if you do that, there are chances of rejection if you don't apply it in the right category, because the officer might feel when you are already a priest here in India, and then they might know that there's a religious function going to happen there in USA, and that during that duration only you plan your trip. So your visa might get rejected because you applied in the wrong category. So we'll be covering those things as well. But those visas, those non-immigrant visas, do not qualify you for a PR or for a green card. So when do you get qualified for a PR or for a green card is when you have your family members, your blood relatives, or your first cousins who are there in the USA, and they're ready to sponsor you, or they're ready to call you from USA or from India to USA to settle with them, and then they're ready to finance you. They're ready to help with your finances. They're ready to sponsor. At that time, you qualify under family sponsorship. That's what I told yesterday as well. If I am in India and my parents are in the USA, and I wish to shift there, I wish to move there. So the easiest and the first thing that I can take up is I can ask my parents to sponsor for me, or I can ask my parents to file the I-130 petition. That's the immigrant visa petition for me. And then once that is filed, then after wait time and everything, once it gets current, I can give my interview and explain the officer my reason to travel there, and who is staying there, for how long have they been there, and why are they ready to sponsor me, and what relation I have with them and everything. And then I get my visa. So at that time, I'll be considered under a family sponsorship program. Then after also if I am below the age of 21 years and if I'm unmarried, my category would be a different category. But if I'm married and if I'm above 21 years of age, my category changes at that time. So we'll be knowing about those categories also, that if a child is under 21, so that time what category will apply for him or for her. And if after they have completed 21 years of age and after they get married, so at that time what category will be for them. Also, if I am married here in India and my parents are sponsoring me, if my parents are calling me to USA, and if I have my child over here, so my husband and my child will automatically be considered as dependent in the same family petition. And if I am being granted a visa, they will be granted a dependent visa along with me. So it's not that my parents will have to file for me separately and then file for my husband and for my child separately. It's not like that. If a petition is filed for me, my husband and my child, it will indirectly become dependence in that, will directly become dependents in the same petition, in the same family petition. Then you get it through employment qualification investment programs. Investment programs is the main thing that is going on now. The EB5 program, it's like you invest some dollars, you invest some certain amount of dollars in USA, and then you wish to hire people from USA to your whatever you are going to start with, whatever business you do there. And then once that amount is invested in the US company, and once you hire that and then your petition is approved and everything, so you get your green card. So that's an investment employment program that qualifies you for a PR. Then the humanitarian provisions is the refugees and the asylum cases. So refugees and asylum cases are treated very with a lot of confidentiality, and those matters are treated very critically, because people, you need to show them you need to prove that you are actually an asylee or you're actually a refugee, that and then only your petition gets granted. So that's a very critical side of qualifying for a PR. Then this is what I just told you all, that we have different categories. This is just a brief. When we actually do the non-immigrant visa forms and everything, at that time we can we'll get the entire list of what visa, which alphabet represents which visa, and what category that visa allows which people of what categories to apply under that section. So B is for business and tourism. Business, again, I'm telling, not for to start your own business in the USA, but if you just want to go there for a conference, or you want to attend a business meeting, which is just for a short period of time, maybe 1 week or 15 days, and you'll complete that and be back. So you can apply for business and tourism B visa category. If suppose I am studying, I've completed my undergraduate degrees over here, and then I intend to do my postgraduate in the USA. So at that time, I'll have to apply for F category. Again, if I consider that, because B1 business and tourism visa you get for 10 years, so I'll apply in that category only and then go there and do my studies. Again, I will fall into trouble. This will put me in trouble again. And then chances that my no, not there are no chances, but of course 110% my visa will get rejected, and it will also put me in trouble later. So if I'm going there for to pursue my degree, to pursue my UG or my PGs, or anything that I'm going there to study, I need to apply under the F category. Then comes the J categories. That's what I told, when you are going there to exchange some knowledge what you have here, and then, or you're going there to practice some knowledge, and so you need to. Avinash, I think, can you please mute? Okay. Then comes the H visa category. That's also the most important visa category, because people from India are traveling to USA, uh, traveling to USA to work there, and there are many companies hiring people from India. So when they want to apply, they need to apply under the H visa category. That is for temporary workers, that you go there, you work till your period of employment, your period of contract, and then you have to return back once that contract period has expired. So that also, so you come under an H category. L category is the intra-company transferees. That's when you have, that's what I told, when you have a branch here in India and you intend to open the same branch in USA. So you need to go for an L visa. So basically, L visas, you will find most of diamond merchants from India who are going to US to start a business there. So whatever L visas I have dealt with till date are most of the, I mean, majorities are of diamond merchants. Then comes the O visa. That's when I am a student and I possess extraordinary abilities. I have extraordinary certifications, or I have been given maybe some awards. I have got my recognitions in the international journals or international seminars or something like that. So I can try for my visa under the O category, but it's very, very, very difficult to qualify for O category. It's not easy. Whatever the qualifications or whatever recognition you want has to be extraordinary, has to be at the topmost level. Also, not all international recognitions qualify you for the O visa. Um, if maybe I can make a note on that, like what qualifications will qualify you for O visa, I'll do that and then share it with you all. Then the P visa is for the athletes, artists, and entertainers. if maybe you are if maybe you are working in some uh, media industry, or you have been an athlete, or you are an artist who knows who is doing some extraordinary skills, and you are going there for to attend maybe a sports, or you're going there for a sport event or something, not to attend but to participate, so you can go for a P visa rather than going for a B1 B2. It's not that you'll not be granted a B1 B2. You'll be granted a B1 B2 if you tell them, or if you make some fake scenarios and fake stories. But then again, in the end, later on, that can put you only in trouble. Then our visa, as I told, is for the religious workers. If you are here as a priest, or you are under in any religious activities, and then you have to attend a religious meeting or a religious event in the USA, you apply for the R visa, and then that will help you more better. Then certain visas have dual intent. You cannot consider tourist visa, you cannot consider student visa for dual intent. Maybe you can consider H1s and L1 visas, that's the work visa and the company visas, as dual intent. That is, it gives you a temporary status which is valid, but after you complete a certain period of time, once suppose if you have got an L visa, if you got an L visa and you go there, you complete 5 years or 6 years, your branch over there in USA completes 5 to 6 years, and then your branch has people from USA who have been employed and they're working there in your branch. So maybe after you complete a more years, or maybe if you if you fulfill certain things and certain I mean, certain things that need to that will allow you to apply for a green card. So if you complete that, if you fulfill those criterias, so under these two visas, maybe you'll get qualified for a green card. But there are certain criteria, there are certain conditions that you need to follow and fulfill. So once that is fulfilled and that is followed, and no rules and regulations have been no rules regulations were violated, you did not violate any laws or anything, so then that is a way you can get qualified for green card rather than going from any other pathway. But only these two visas qualify you as dual intent, but there are no other visas. You cannot never consider that a tourist visa or a student visa will allow you that once you complete certain period, or even if you have not violated any law, it will never allow you to change your status. Then the architecture of dependent visa, that's what I told you all, that if my parents file for me, if my parents are filing for me an immigrant family petition, my husband and my children automatically gets involved, gets added as the dependent in the same petition. But yeah, let me clear one more thing. If I am married and I have a child who is above 21 years of age, then I cannot add that child in my own petition, in my same petition, because initially it will not create any problem for me. But once when I go for the interview, then the child might get removed from the petition, and then again I'll have to find another way for him. So we need to consider and we need to keep in mind all of those things as well. Yeah, let me clear one more thing with you all, is that under non-immigrant cases, suppose if I am applying for my tourist visa, in those situations, it does not mean that my husband and my child is getting qualified for the tourist visa. If I am applying for a tourist visa and my husband and my child wants to come along with me, they need to file, they need to apply for the tourist visa separately. Separately, I mean we can apply all three of us together, but it does not mean that if I am granted a visa, so my husband and my child will also get a visa. 90% they grant the entire family. If they're granting one person, then the entire family gets the visa if we are applying all together. But there are certain cases where um, if a family is applying together a tourist visa, um, we had a case like this as well. There was a family who applied for a tourist visa. They wanted to go to USA for their son's convocation. So the mother, father, and the child who was there with them in India, all three of them applied together. The age of their son who was in India was around 24 or 25 years when they applied for the interview. So when they went for the interview and the officer asked them the questions and everything, at that time, the parents answered to all the questions well properly that they're going to USA for their son's convocation who is in US. So that's the reason, that's the purpose of this trip. And then they intend to return back once the convocation is done, and then once 3 weeks is completed and everything, they'll come back. But in this case, because the son who was with them in India was around 25 or 26 years of age, he was not granted the visa. His visa got refused, and only his parents got the visa. Why? Because the officer might have felt that because he is around 25, 26, and he's not married here in India, or he's not been engaged till date, he might go there in USA, and the parents might find someone in the USA, and then they can make this the son who is here with them, they can make that son get married to some girl from USA. So that's the reason this son who was with them, who stayed with them in India, his visa got rejected. So there are cases like these as well, when if the parents have been granted visas, automatically the dependent, the son or the child or the girl, the daughter will get the visa. So it's not like this. This happens only under the immigrant cases, that if a petition is filed for me, so my husband automatically becomes the dependent and he'll be granted a visa. But under non-immigrant thing, everybody who wants to travel needs to apply separately, needs to fill out separate forms for all of them, and then during the interview you have to answer to the questions properly, and you need to clear all your intentions, you need to clear everything. Most importantly, there's one question that they ask in the end is, convince us that you'll come back to India or you'll return back to your home country, be it India or any other home country. So at that time there are people who just say, I will come back because India is my home country, because India is my motherland. So one statement will never suffice. You consider yourself as a visa officer, and consider that I'm coming for an interview and you ask me this question, convince me that you'll return back. And at that time, if I just say that I will return back because India is my motherland, will you be satisfied? Will you feel that, yeah, okay, because India is the motherland, India is the home country, because this girl is born and brought up in India, she's going to come back? It will, of course, not. So, you need to. So, in this course, in the upcoming weeks, we'll take up we'll take up interactive question and answers, and how to prepare for an interview while you apply for your US visa. So we'll be doing that as well. Then the immigration practitioner's scope of work. This is very important. First thing is the legal consultation. If y'all are practicing advocates, I see many practicing advocates who have joined here. You might be taking up civil, criminal, family matters, or other company cases. But after this course, I'm sure and I hope you can take up legal consultation for immigration as well, on immigration matters as well. Then this will help you for the assessment. If somebody comes up and says that they want to pursue their masters in some other country or in the USA, let's consider US only. So you'll be able to take those assessment, and you will be able to find out whether they are eligible or not. and what documentations and everything you need. So yeah, that comes on the fourth step. The third is the visa strategy. You'll be able to help them strategize what documents and how they need to be prepared if they are applying for whatever category visa. Then fourth is the documentation. After this course, you will know at least the basic documents that is required to apply for any category. Then petition drafting. I'm sure advocates and lawyers are very good with drafting and everything. But uh, after this course, I hope you'll be good with immigrant petition drafting also. Then the compliance or whatever, what procedures and what compliance to follow for which category. We'll be taking up that too. Then client representations, and the client handling. That's what I discussed yesterday, that the most important thing every lawyers need to know is patience and how calmly we can deal with the clients, because not all the clients are the same. Some might be very calm with their work, but the other might be very restless. Currently, I'm dealing with one client who keeps bombarding me with messages, even at 5 a.m. in the morning or even at 4 a.m. in the morning. And that also, I do not get just one line or one message at a time. I have 60 messages at one. And this is nothing that I'm exaggerating. If I mean, I can show someday I'll do that, but I need to maintain the privacy, so I cannot do anyways. So that's your skill. That's on you. That how you deal and how you react to such clients. And not every client and not every message deserves a reply. Certain things need to be ignored. So we'll discuss that as well. That what skills and how you need to deal with such clients. Then the last is the appeal, where if you are not getting anything, if you feel that you are not getting a proper reply from any of the authority where you have approached somebody, so in those cases you can appeal, and we have writs option available, so we'll think of that as well. And the practitioner's ecosystem, global ambition, and connecting it with legal reality. So there's a line mentioned: the practitioner does not merely file paperwork, they engineer the legal pathways. So we'll be not just filing paperworks. I hope you all are able to read the entire thing now. They engineer the legal pathways that make global mobility possible. So, yeah, at the end of this course, I hope and I'm sure that we'll be connecting these two together and help a lot of people, help the first generation lawyers to start their own practice, or help the students who want to travel abroad for studies, or the ones who are here and want to go abroad to work, or advocates who want to draft petitions and take up legal consultations. So maybe at the end of this course, after we complete this course, the crash course, this will be beneficial for all of you all. So I think I'm at the end of the slide, and that's all from my side. We can take up questions for the day now. Thumbs up will make me happy and make me satisfied if I was good and I was clear with my explanation. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Chayan from Kolkata. Ma'am, can we get the PPTs?
I think, yeah, you'll be getting the PPT or not. Um, I'll
Okay.
just confirm that with the coordinator, and
Okay. Okay,
yeah, if
ma'am.
you'll be getting it, you all will get it
Ah,
directly in
but
the.
your explanation is a crystal clear.
Sorry.
Your explanation is a crystal clear. Very
Oh,
good explanation.
thank you so
Very
much.
good. Very good. Very good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I am also professor at the college under Calcutta University in Kolkata. But
Okay.
your explanation is yes. I am learning something from you. and definitely I will implement to my students. Very
That's,
good explanation, ma'am. Very good explanation.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you, sir.
Mm, mm.
I think there are no questions.
I joined lately, so I could not get all. So I will see the recorded one, I think so. So I could not,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
little bit I could understand.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I do not just stop myself in the during the session because I feel we can take up questions at the end of the session. So once we complete everything, whatever you all have, you all can ask me. But if this is not working out, you all can stop me during the session and ask me if you all want anything, because I think there are no questions at the end.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
All right. I just wanted to know, where do we access the recordings?
I think you all have an app that is Code Practice app, and then you all will get all the recordings and the notes over there.
All right. If it's possible, can the link be shared anywhere in the group or somewhere?
Yeah, definitely. There will
All
be
right.
links and everything shared. Yeah.
All right. All right. All right. Fine. Okay. Thank you.
Is there anything else? I think I do not have any more questions coming up. Okay, thank you, Deepali. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. But I think we have still time. If you all do not have any questions, so we can take up some practical activity, maybe. Let's see.
Okay, ma'am.
Uh, Advocate Muhammad Muzammil, who requested me to take this session in Hindi. If you have any doubts, we are at the end of the session. I can clear that in Hindi now if you want. I'm not sure if he's there in this session or not. Okay, I see him here. Anyways, fine. Okay, just give me 5 minutes.
It's not good. Yeah.
Yeah. Um. I think we'll take practical, whatever the form filling and everything is in the next week only, because if we start with that now, we'll have to hurry and rush, and things might not be clear. And also, I think certain people have also left the session, considering that, yeah, we have come to an end. So, okay, keeping all these things in mind and that they don't miss it, we'll take up some practical activities in the next time. If you all have anything, you all
Okay, ma'am.
can ask me. Yeah. Or what we can do is we can take up some interview questions. What questions the officer might ask during your interview and how you have to answer to that. So we can take up that and then we can again do some questions in the next class. Okay. Yeah, that works. Okay. So you all can either write it in the chat box, or if you all are comfortable, you all can unmute and give me an answer to what questions I ask. Maybe we can do like that I become your visa officer and you all have applied for your visa. A thumbs up from everyone will be helpful. Okay, Fine. So consider that you are applying for a tourist visa and you have come for your interview. The first question that I come up with is, why do you want to travel to USA? So what question, what to this question, what answer would you give? You can write it in the chat box as well if you're not comfortable and muting yourselves.
Just to explore new country. For the
Okay.
first time, I want to visit.
Okay, so that's what you would answer.
Yeah.
Okay. But if I am going for an interview, I would answer it as I am applying for a tourist visa to explore your beautiful country and visit places such as A, B, C, D, E, F. So the officer is satisfied, okay, that you know what places you are going to visit, and it gives a clear picture to where you're going to stay. So nearby places only you would be visiting, right? So just to explore a new country. Okay, that answer is not wrong, but it's not even complete. Uh, yeah, was that clear?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Before, I mean, yeah, you said it well, but for me, if I have no knowledge about it, I have to get myself prepared when the interview is there. How
Yeah.
I need to answer. So as you have said, so I need to prepare that what, where, which place I need to go. I have to study all that, and then I'll be able to answer, right?
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, ma'am. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay. So next question that the officer might come up with is, for how many days do you intend to visit? Deepali ma'am, a thumbs up at this time won't work. For how many days do you intend to visit? No answers? You do not plan to visit to USA?
Not, not it, ma'am.
No. So which country are you planning to visit?
Who said?
I can't hear you, sorry. Can you please repeat? Okay, so
I
the
don't get your point, ma'am. Means I have to answer you for this question which you asked me.
it's not compulsory. You just told that you're not planning to visit USA. I just asked which other country do you intend to visit?
Yeah, I want to visit USA, but not at visited that I told you, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Okay, so we
Ma'am, for example, if I say for 1 month.
no, never do that. If you are
Acha.
to visit USA on a tourist purpose, always say that you're going for 3 weeks. Because 1 month, if you say, you need to show that amount of funds as well, that yeah, you have these, I mean, you have this sufficient bank balance, and then that's the reason you can stay there for 1 month. But never do that. Always say 3 weeks, because of course you're going to get visa for 10 years, and then at the port of entry you'll be given a letter for how many days you can stay there. But the more number of month or days you say, so then again that makes your application weak.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions from your end?
But how we come to know, ma'am, ki for which country we have to give which how many days?
See, almost every country has a form. If not a form, for Canada, you have a form, you do not have an interview. So, in that form, it is mentioned, indicate your period of stay. So, if you're going for a tourist purpose, it's better you show minimum number of days only, minimum number of weeks, that's 3 weeks, because the more the number of days you show, the more confusions, the more it puts the officer in doubt that you might not return back. So it's always to show like 3 weeks, maximum 4 weeks.
Ma'am, then
Thank you,
amount
ma'am.
and all, how much bank balance we need to know that all you're going to,
See,
we
that's
have no idea about it.
Yeah, see, it's very basic. If a single person is going to USA for 3 weeks, minimum amount, at least for one person, you need to show 5 lakhs you have in your account. If you say that you are sponsored, if you say that this trip is fully funded by yourself, but if you say that your company is sponsoring you this trip, or if you say that maybe someone from USA is calling you and they are going to sponsor you this trip. So at that time, if you have a limited number, a limited amount in your account, so that's fine. But if you say that the entire trip is funded by yourself, at that time you need to show at least minimum of 5 lakhs.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. And if you're showing 5 lakhs for one person, and if two of you are going, so you'll need to show minimum of 8 to 10 lakhs. That's better to make your application stronger.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Ma'am, only you,
Um,
you need to ask question because we will see how we can answer it if you have questions.
Okay, so
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you, ma'am.
no
Actually,
problem.
due to LMM exam, I missed few sessions, ma'am. So I'll check the recording also. So just want to ask, ma'am, ki means for why this thing is essential, means why interference of advocate is essential. That I want to know, ma'am, in brief,
Okay.
if you don't mind. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. Interference of advocate for this course is important because today you might be practicing as a civil lawyer or a criminal lawyer or a consultant. Okay. And suppose a client comes up to you or a student comes up to you asking that they want to get their visa done, or they've got some rejections and they want to get help with a letter, or do they want help with the petition, because when you are filing for family sponsor petitions, when you're going for immigrant visa in for USA, you need to file petitions. So a layman will not be able to file a petition how the way an advocate would file for them. So if you have an idea about how to file, what things to add in the petition, or what forms to fill out during when you apply for your visas, so that is how it is going to be beneficial for the advocates.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, actually, the people who go for work visa or student visa and all, normally they go to, immigration office and there they get a consultant or they go somewhere else. I mean, like lawyers they go to. Uh,
Ma'am, I missed few of your words in the beginning. Can you please repeat your question?
I said, for example, if a student or a person who wants to work over there,
Mm-hmm.
normally they go to immigration office to get the work done, or they go to the lawyer or any consultant.
See, there are agents as well who help with the visa and everything. But again, is my point here that an agent will not be able to help a person the way an advocate or a lawyer will help. So they need to first get an help from a lawyer to help them prepare with their documentations, with the forms, with the interview preparations and everything. And then they need to take an interview for they need to take an interview date for their interviews for the visa. And then when they go for an interview, they go to the consulates, to the embassies to give their interview. And then the officer decides whether to give the visa or to reject.
Ma'am, my point is that the agent there in the immigration office itself, when they, the
No,
student
no,
visa,
no, 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 no. It's
they
separate.
don't, the agents where they actually, how they, these people go to the agent, where they be, I mean, their office is where located.
There are many agents everywhere, all and around. You can find
Acha,
it on Google. There are
okay,
lawyers. So, yeah,
okay,
when you find it on Google, you'll find it
acha,
which office is near to your house, wherever you stay.
okay,
They are never in the embassy or consulate.
acha, okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay, ma'am, thanks.
So I hope there are no more questions for today's session, and I think we can end.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
You're welcome. And if you're good to end the session, you all can leave the meeting.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah.